Hello, today is St George's Day, as people keep reminding me, and I wanted to find something hopeful to talk about. So I have found a few things hopeful, and one of them is, I will give you a brief rundown on what St George's Day is. Then I will take you sort of on a little ride around my local woodland, and then I'll talk about how a plumber invented something that will save many lives. Not for the first time, I might say, but this is something pretty spectacular. Okay, if I've whetted your appetite, hang on and I'll tell you about it. I'm granniopteryx. I'm on x.com. I'm on YouTube, as most of you seem to know. I'm on Rumble and Minds, and I'm also on two semi-banned platforms in the UK, and that's BitChute and Gab. If you're in the UK, you can access those through a VPN if you pretend you're in another country. Most of the time I pretend I'm in Norway, by the way, and that's because when you get adverts in Norwegian, it sounds like English being spoken backwards. Okay. All right, well, we'll start with St George's Day, something I actually wasn't aware of. He isn't only the patron saint of England. He gets around quite a bit. Apparently, he's also the patron saint of Albania, Bulgaria, England, well, we know that, Ethiopia, Greece, Georgia, Portugal, Romania, Syria, Palestine. Palestine? How did he get to be the patron saint of Palestine? This is Wikipedia. Somebody has inserted this. What a cheek. Okay, Lebanon. Yeah, I'll believe that. Castile and Leon, Catalonia, Alcoy, Aragon, Genoa, and Rio de Janeiro. Okay, hang on. Where's the nice picture? Oh, they don't show the big statue there. It is Rio de Janeiro that has that big statue, isn't it? I could be wrong. Okay, well, he gets around, this fellow. It must be a very energetic horse. And here he is killing the dragon. We've had a lot of nice warm weather recently. So, now I shall just digress into my hair, because sometimes I'm fully aware that it's a terrible mess. And sometimes it looks relatively neat, like today. And that's one way my regular viewers can tell if I've been riding or not, because there is nothing that ruins your hair so badly as a riding hat. And the problem is you get all sweaty under the riding hat. So, wherever your hair is compressed under the hat, there it stays. And sometimes I manage to have a shower before I start to do the videos, and other times I don't. And you can sort of tell. I'm sorry about that. I always did have trouble controlling my hair. I was never very good with it. And one day I realised I'd been messing with it for ages and it didn't look right. And I thought, all right, now I'm going to have a bargain with my hair. I don't bother you and you don't bother me. That's it. And since then, I've been relatively chill about the state of my topiary here. All right, so let's talk about riding, seeing as we have St George here, who is never wore armour like that, by the way, and probably did not ride a horse. He was, according to this, he was just a Roman soldier who'd converted to Christianity and was martyred for converting, for being a Christian. That's that, apart from the fact that Palestine will appropriate almost anything, and they've appropriated St George, and I'm really quite pissed off about that. Okay, let's go round the woods, should we? You see, Now, a caveat to this. These aren't pictures I took while I was riding. I can't do that anyway. I'm too busy with my horse. But these, and I may have made a mistake about some of the plants I've seen as well, because I'm no botanist. But trying to work out what they were, I have come across various sorts of plants and I've found pictures of them. And this is the sort of thing that I see recently when I'm out riding. So let's start with feverfew, which has a reputation of going back to the Romans, being a sort of anti-inflammatory. And it's a very pretty flower. I thought, when I first saw them, years ago, I thought, oh, very fat-looking daisies. But of course, they're not daisies, although they resemble them. And then there are bluebells, of course, and you can have whole woodlands, just a sea of bluebells. And if you're riding through them, which I don't advise you to do because it ruins the bluebells. But if you find a path through them and from a distance, it looks like you're riding through some sort of a deep blue pool. Okay, and there are lots of daffodils as well. And daffodils come in all sorts of shapes and sizes. And technically, they're called narcissi, aren't they? And they could look cream like this or yellow like this, different shades of it. And then there are crocuses, of course. And around about where we are, there are occasional tulips of various sorts. I haven't seen a tulip like this, but I've seen a few like this. So I'm assuming those are quite small tulips, and I might not have seen any of them. And then there are primroses and violets. And this is, I know this one, this is a wood anemone, and when you're going through the woods, these are all mysterious, under the trees, which some of which are still quite bare and dark. And then at the bottom, underneath them, there's these bright stars just shining out of the shade. And then there's, this, I believe, is called the lesser celandine. I don't know what the greater celandine is, or even if there is such a thing. And there are now hawthorn bushes flowering as well. And there's these trees which not quite covered in snow, but they will be quite soon. And then there are, of course, fields and fields of dandelions. They're just whole fields. And do you know you can make fritters out of the flowers? I mean, don't just go and do it. Check it out first. But I believe you can take the flowers. I know you can eat the leaves. They make a sort of salad. But you can also apparently eat the flowers. You just batter them and fry them. I have no idea what they taste like. And then, of course, there are the daisies. And of the trees, there's a neighbour who has a magnolia tree, which actually it's white rather than pink at the moment. But maybe that's just the type of tree. Well, not white, sort of cream colour. So, but she's got this magnolia tree, and the cherry trees. Cherry trees are bursting into life now, and they're beautiful. And then in my back garden, the apple trees. They're all very, very busy this year. Combination of a very wet winter and a lot of warm weather now. They're doing very well. I'll have to put some compost down. All right, well, and those are the... I was riding yesterday, and that's why the video was late. And I was just getting these amazing scenes as I went through the woods. And I'm reminded that whatever lies politicians tell, whatever human duplicity we are daily exposed to. These flowers are there in their woodland areas, blooming away, renewing themselves for the year. And let's get that cherry tree. There's a magnificent cherry tree up near the stables. It looks a lot like this, although this isn't the tree. Hang on, I'm going to... Desk is pushing... Right, that's right. Yeah, I'm getting... and that reminds me... In fact, I think it's the only thing that keeps me sane. A lot of people say the stuff I do is almost unremittingly depressing. Well, yeah. Human duplicity is very depressing, and I suppose I can handle it because every so often, 3 or 4 times, up to 5 times a week, I'm out on my horse, which is shedding like crazy right now. Yesterday I was just scraping handfuls of hair out, and as if that wasn't bad enough, I spent this morning scraping handfuls of hair out of the dog as well. Right, there's always a downside to warmer weather as well. Now, let me tell you about an artificial heart. This is a story from Australia. But again, it's one of the things that we in Western culture can be very, very proud of. And what happened was that this chap, Daniel Timms, he was a scientist. His father was a plumber. Now, this is another marvellous thing. His father was what most people in the BBC would look down on, regard as a mere manual worker. But Gary Timms sent his son to university and to be, it turns out now, a world-famous scientist. But not strictly on his own. You see, Mr. Timms had progressive heart failure, and he had been dying of it for about 5 years before he did die at the age of 55. Terrible, awful thing to lose one's father at such a young age. And what happened was that this young man at the time was trying to save his father by inventing an artificial heart. And the way he did it, the impetus, was that his father was a plumber. And between the two of them, his father with his plumbing experience and Daniel with his scientific experience, they came up with the world's first artificial heart. And although his father died before it could be realised, this is what it looks like. And it works because there are rotors inside. The father suggested that they apply the principles of a pond pump to creating a blood pump. And they made it out of titanium because apparently titanium is the only metal that never gets rejected by the body. Dad had pumps and pipes and everything in the backyard, pumping water round the pool, and those pumps have this spinning disc inside them, said Daniel. That's how they pump waterfalls and slow them down, and it's also how jet skis work. So it's kind of like, why can't we use that kind of approach for the body as well? It's just another system. So they started to develop that, and after Daniel Timms' father died, he continued the work. And now there's a patient who was waiting for a heart transplant, but survived 100 days using this artificial heart. As for the patient, a man from New South Wales in his 40s who's not been named, his clinical presentation after the surgery exceeded expectations. Before the surgery, he could barely walk across the room, so he was almost bedbound. Patients like this are on a precipice and can go either way. They can just collapse and arrest, or in this case, we get them an artificial heart transplant using a device like this one, and their kidneys start working better. Their liver starts working better. As a result, the patients are in more robust health to have their donor heart transplant when the call comes. But of course, using the device isn't just a stopgap, according to Daniel Timms. He wants this to completely replace the natural organ. And I don't see why he shouldn't be able to do that. The only problem would be getting it to pump more blood or less, depending on what you're doing. So it's too large at the moment for children, but it would go into an adult's chest. And that is an absolutely wonderful story. There it is. An absolutely wonderful story of invention. And, they say that nothing happens for no reason. And poor Mr. Timms Sr., if he didn't have the sort of heart disease that would take him away, it wouldn't have occurred to him or his son to invent the artificial heart, which might end up saving hundreds of thousands of lives. My father died of heart failure, so maybe I take this very personally. He wasn't as young as that, but he was fairly young. Anyway, that's the story of the Timms artificial heart, and it's the story of Western inventiveness, of the sort of inventiveness that comes from a society that invents and questions, as opposed to other societies throughout the rest of the world that don't invent things because they never question. It's all, God's will. I'm referring, of course, to the Muslim world. Well, I'm really sorry, I can't find the original page I was talking about. And this is interesting because this is another Wikipedia of St. George, and it gives England, Bosnia, Herzegovina, Bulgaria, Georgia, Ukraine, Malta, Ethiopia, Catalonia, Aragon. Moscow and Beirut have claimed George as their patron saint. And the Church of St. George in Lod in Israel has a sarcophagus traditionally believed to contain St. George's relics. So it looks like, how people can go in and start inserting stuff into Wikipedia. Well, it looks like someone with an agenda did that in the other page, which I can't find now. But I want you to be very careful about that. I mean, I had no intention of talking about that in this video. But while we're on the subject, some of you may have seen the video I made in which I discovered some woman in traditional Arab dress saying that Big Ben had been a Palestine clock in Jerusalem until the British in 1922 kidnapped it and took it to London. There is a thing, because Palestine didn't really exist, the people with that agenda to push keep on appropriating other people's cultures. And I know that they had appropriated Big Ben, but now it looks like some of them are trying to appropriate St. George as well. Don't let them do it. Okay, well, happy St. George's Day wherever you are, and just think, however nasty people are, those lesser celandines and wooden enemies are still doing their funky stuff underneath the trees through which me and my horse were riding yesterday, and it was beautiful. And it reminds me that the world is indeed a beautiful place. And don't forget the heart. Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.